Hello, and welcome to this edition of Spirit of the Valley. As with our titles being Spirit, we have two very spirited women here who are doing some very good things that most people in this area are going to be excited to hear about, because it involves trails and options, as well as land conservation. But I think I'm going to let them do that kind of discussion because they know what they're doing. This is Adair Mulligan.
Hi, Judy.
Really glad to have you here.
Thank you.
And Nancy Collier. And I, full disclosure, go back 100 years with Nancy and her boys. If you have a hockey coach who has called your boys, you know the whole family. But you have something called the Hanover Conservancy.
Yes.
And you are busy. You can see behind us, I hope. It involves, here anyway, what we're showing is Mink Brook, Balch Hill, and I can't remember which is behind me.
Greensboro Ridge.
Greensboro.
Mm-hmm.
Now, these are all areas where you've been not only conserving and taking care of the land, but breaking trails as well?
Not only breaking trails, but also demonstrating good stewardship of the lands that we own. And we own a good portion of Balch Hill, along with the town of Hanover and Dartmouth College.
I didn't know that.
And we own the lighter area there at 112 acres at the Mink Brook Nature Preserve,
perfect.
and partly surrounded by some conserved town land that we helped the town acquire as early as 1967, as a matter of fact, the Tansy Tract in 1967.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, sure, Tansy. Mm-hmm. But what you're doing now, they're walking trails, correct?
They're walking
Strictly?
trails. There is one mountain biking trail here at Greensboro Ridge Natural Area,
Okay.
the one along the lower end.
Okay.
And they're trails that should appeal to everybody. We've got some of the catch your breath kind of trails, and then we've got the slow walkers and the happy old dogs, and that kind of thing.
That's what I think people love to hear, that it's an inclusive situation where it isn't just the diehard hikers that can do it, or it isn't too easy for the diehard hikers either, so that you've got something for both ends of the spectrum and everything in the middle.
We have variety, and we also try to connect our trails to other trails when possible. The Greensboro Ridge property trail connects to the Appalachian Trail.
Oh, perfect.
And also has a trail, recently developed a new trail that lets people from the developments along Greensboro Road to travel through this wilderness and right up to the AT if they want to.
So people who live on Greensboro have immediate access to it?
Absolutely.
Right out their back door?
A little bit of
Or
walking through the close, as close as we can get. That's one of our goals. That's right.
Good. Well, I think that's just a plus for anything, making something easy to get to, and you'll go do it.
Exactly, Judy. Part of our goal here is to provide a great outdoor experience close to home. Exactly. So that you can, pop out your back door, and in half an hour you can get some rejuvenation, get some fresh air, get some work out whatever going on in your head, and then get back to work. But have that outdoor experience without having to drive for a long time
miles.
To get to
I
the
think
trailhead.
that's what the part of the reason why something like the rail trail
Yes.
in Lebanon has been so successful, because I know people that drive there to work out and then will go out and bike on the trail also, or tons of people live around it. So handy is the word. If you, and our day and age, my motto for years has been just keep moving, and this will take away most excuses for not even just a little walk.
When you think about kids in town who don't have a license,
Yes.
you hope they can get out. And there was a day when you used to wander your neighborhood in your backwoods, but that's changed, I think, with development pressures
It's
and
changed with
privacy
kids particularly.
concerns.
I think adults still love to walk. I mean, I know people where I am find all kinds of crazy places to walk, but I don't see kids out there.
Well, we hope that they do have access to all our properties, and that we are thinking all the time about how to connect it better to the kids in their neighborhoods and their schools.
Boy, from schools right there, there's your daily PE or daily or weekly field trip, and learning along the way too. There's the flora around the route. Oh, that's perfect.
Balch Hill is close to Ray School and Richmond Middle School.
Yes.
So most of the kids
Yes,
have had field trips
exactly.
to the top of Balch Hill.
Exactly. Oh, so and it's foot traffic mainly. Now, are you going to have brochures and, the maps are wonderful and the website, which you should give any minute now. Yeah, what is your website?
Our website is www.hanoverconservancy.org, and all of our trail maps are posted on our website, easy to download. We have 2 published field guides to this one to Balch Hill and this one to Mink Brook.
Over here, yep.
And thanks to the generosity of neighbors around our Greensboro Ridge Natural Area, this year we're going to be working on a version for the Greensboro Ridge Natural Area.
So they all chip in and help get these things done too? That's amazing.
Yep. We had a little fundraiser earlier this year, and that helped us put over the top for the construction of our new trail, and hope that's going to be a lot more fun for the neighborhood.
Now, what are some of the links? Do you know any links offhand? I mean, does it go from half a mile to 10, or I mean, are there any real long ones, or are they all broken by options and forks in the road?
They're fairly well broken up that way,
Yeah.
so that you have a number of different choices. The new trail that we just built within the last couple of weeks is half a mile long, connects to another half-mile long trail, so that the total loop ends up being about a mile and a quarter, something like that. But there are many shorter trips that you can take. If the weather turns bad on you and you want to turn around, you can do that.
Not too far out.
But you also can walk from downtown Hanover and get yourself down to Boston Lot Lake in Lebanon. Without, once you leave the Brook Road there, you're on the trail.
And I'm sure they're well marked, knowing how you sound.
We are doing our best. We have our boundary markers.
So there's what you're going to find on trees, or
that's at the perimeter of our properties, and at our trailheads. We're currently posting our new trail signs that indicate the size of the trail.
That's a really good sign. And it'll be consistent. It'll be something people will
recognize. And not only that, you can scan the QR code with your smartphone, and if you're out in the woods and you've got cell service, you can pick up a trail map right then and there on the trail.
So
it's a good safety feater, and it also
hold it up even closer to the edge, so they'll get a sense of how it will look. There you go. And then that's just going to be the marker that you'll see consistently along any one of these routes.
Yes, as you enter the property.
And this would be the same thing.
It's a boundary
area, so you know exactly where you start on this network and when you're on your own.
That's part of our stewardship. Our stewardship, good stewardship requires that you know your boundaries and you inform neighbors of your boundaries, so that this helps us to do that in a subtle way, a small sign.
Well, it's important. You don't want a lot of people going over that line and trespassing literally and making neighbors angry at you, or just upsetting someone.
Or cutting trees. It's as simple and innocent as that sometimes.
Yeah, and people think that's a help, but it really has to be planned to be right.
It does. It does. And the public is always welcome on our trails at all times, unless there's an emergency of some sort.
Right.
We do post signs to let people know that, yes, there is a mother bear with 3 young cubs that is hanging right over here in this tree, and watch your step.
Good for you.
Because give the bear a little room. Yes.
Because bears are the thing right now. I had one dining in my backyard not long ago, and it was a big, big bear, and I ran out and grabbed a picture before I took all the pots and pans I had and scared him away, and then doused the area with ammonia as the Fish and Game told me to do. If I didn't want to have him back for dinner. And I didn't. So, do you see a lot of other interesting creatures along your trails, though? I mean, as you've done this, have you?
Oh, yes, we do, Judy. And one of the interesting things about this Greensboro Ridge trail building exercise was that here we have 113 acres of really wonderful wildlife habitat. But if we wanted to run a trail loop through that property, we wanted to be very sure that we did not disturb wildlife habitat while we were doing it. So we hired an organization by the name of Watershed to Wildlife, some consulting biologists to assess the wildlife habitat on that piece of land, and then tell us where we could run a trail so that we can have our wildlife and our recreation too.
So you took no chances at all.
Exactly. Good. And we accompanied them during those field trips at all different seasons, and we found amazing fisher activity up there. Those are handsome creatures.
Yes,
They're
they are.
predators. They're a large member of the mink family. Found a lot of tracks right close to downtown Hanover, and we've got some very wild habitat
Well,
there.
and no one ever really thinks about that until the bears started coming in, or coyotes, or you're hearing reports of all kinds of things, fisher among them, fisher cats, I think. But people never really know what to do about them most of the time either. I mean, I called someone because I said, what do I do with this guy? He's going to keep coming back. And he said, I know I can tell you how to make it really uncomfortable for him to want to be back there. And it didn't hurt him.
That brings us back to a great story from last year when we did find the mother bear and triplets, it was.
Yes.
Right at the entrance to our Mick Brook Preserve. Neighbors were calling Adair and calling the town, calling our office, in other words, asking about what should happen and could we move the bear, please. And Adair quickly invited Ben Killam, the
great.
local bear expert, to come and speak at Howe Library within that same week to inform people about bears and their habitat and what to do. And he was very clear that the bear lives here, and if that bear were removed, that bear's offspring would take over that territory, that they each have their own, and it's like a mosaic. And so moving that family wouldn't help these folks,
That's
you know,
funny.
and that they should learn how to live with the bears. So that's the kind of education we take seriously.
I think you have to, and I think you're lucky to be connected with someone like him that you could get in the spur of the
in a
moment.
heartbeat, right?
I mean, that's pretty lucky, because there was a panic. I mean, our neighborhood, when I sent this out, there were people calling and saying, where exactly? I said, well, I don't know. I put so much ammonia up there, they won't be back in our yard, but yours is another story. Get some ammonia. But then on the internet, you kept hearing other neighborhoods in the area, on that Upper Valley, Hanover, New Hampshire, Vermont website is wonderful for that kind of thing. Someone will say, I just had a bear in my backyard in West Lev, and someone else will say, well, I'm in such and such in Enfield, and I had a whole family. And you get this pattern of where these guys are traveling. And not that you're going to change anything, it's just watch out.
We have very healthy bear habitat throughout Hanover, and not just on Moose Mountain, but with these triplet cubs that Nancy was speaking of, are within 500 yards of downtown Hanover.
And nobody ever pictures that with a town or city. They think, but they go where they darn well please, actually.
Well, we are in their habitat.
Yeah, exactly. We came second. So which of these did you do first? Which area? Was it Balch Hill that got, or Mink Brook?
Balch Hill was our first land protection project. Our organization started in 1961. We are the oldest local land trust in New Hampshire.
Fantastic.
And began to get together around the idea of how is Hanover's future going to unfold. And there was such enthusiasm for protecting green spaces around the settled areas, the villages, especially downtown Hanover. And we had some great minds that got together from our very earliest days around this issue. And Balch Hill came to us in the very early 1970s. First, the parcel at the summit had a long time beloved landmark. And then a second piece was given to us by a family that lives in the area. And then we helped the town get another 44-acre piece, and then Dartmouth owned an adjacent parcel. So that got going, and then it wasn't long before we acquired some others. But in the meantime, we had been very active with the towns in the area. This is long before the Upper Valley Land Trust existed. And we did land protection projects in Lyme, in Grafton, in Plainfield, and then assisted others, especially the town of Hanover, in either buying the land outright and turning it over to the town, or paying for appraisals or survey costs, or working with the landowner, finding grants, that kind of thing, all in an effort to achieve conservation for public good.
Well, now, were you sponsored with a grant, through a grant, or how did you get financed to do what obviously wasn't without money? I mean,
right. Well, there was
someone gave you money somewhere along the way.
We have had the benefit of wonderful support from the Hanover community and from beyond. We have members in 4 or 5 states, not just in the Hanover area.
Had they ever been in Hanover? I mean, they must have known Hanover
or had
something,
some kind of
ring a bell.
relationship, affiliation at one time or
Nice.
another. And so our membership is very important in terms of our support. We
Yep.
are not associated with the town of Hanover financially at
Right.
all. We do not have a line item in the town budget,
Right.
Which is a great surprise to many people who just assume that because Hanover is in our name that
Right.
we've got a line item and
Right.
get town support, but no, we
No.
do not.
You work harder.
In fact, it might be worth pointing out that in the early days, and even since then, because we are private
Yeah.
and nonprofit, and the Hanover Conservation Commission is a function of the town,
Yes.
we can behave like private organization and not have to wait for town meeting once a year, which is often
That's
what
important
is
that you
required
brought
for
that
some
up.
of these
It's
decisions. So
important that you
that's
made
why
that.
we can work together, and I think Ball Chill is a good example of where our ability to act.
It makes you a lot more limber. You just can think of something and then
Exactly.
go do it.
Yep, take a piece of land off the market and hold it until the
Yeah.
town can act.
The hierarchy that unfortunately most places that are public requires can take a lot of time, and then you lose some of the spark, and you lose some of the interest sometimes when you're waiting for the next step to be approved. And this way, you guys can kind of decide what you want to do and do it. And I think that's the only way to go.
It's tricky, it's fun, it's shifting sand sometimes. You have to step out and take action when you're not sure if the town will pass whatever decision they need to.
But you've come
take
across
on,
something
so.
that needed to be done, and
But we work together. We're proud of that
But now
cooperation.
you were making a very clear distinction
Mhm.
between you and the Town Conservation Board.
Conservation Commission,
Commission.
in this case.
And so they're public and private. Yeah, I like private.
Yep.
Well, there's a place for each.
There is a wonderful place for each. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking the. I just love being able to. I get kind of a bee in my bonnet, and I want to go do something right away. And I'm not terribly patient when I have to wait for
For town government.
six levels to approve something that really isn't going to require much of anything except the approval.
Well, we don't have the burden of the legislative mandate
Exactly.
that the Conservation Commission does, but they're essential partners.
Well, you'd have to be, because you all want the same thing. You were talking about your mission, and it's their mission too. I mean, everyone wants to be as good a steward as they can be on whatever. I mean, you don't have to be even on either committee to want to be a good steward of the land. That's just hopefully becoming innate and instinctive. But I just like the way you've gotten a lot done. You've gotten a lot done.
Well, we feel we have. It's almost 2,000 acres, and then beyond that, it's the people as well, Judy. We have local stewardship committees set up for each one of our properties. And these are volunteers, many of whom live in the
I was going
neighborhood
to say, are they landowners?
of the
or-
protected
yeah.
land. Sometimes they are they're from somewhere else and just have a particular affinity for that
Yeah.
particular land.
Yeah.
And they get together, they advise us on what they're seeing on the trails, and boy, there's a tree down over here really needs to be taken care of, or I've seen this problem beginning to show itself, and
Yeah.
what are we going to do about it? They advise us on management. They patrol the trails. They do trail work, and
So there's regular sweeping and regular.
Oh, and sometimes even more complicated than that, invasives control that requires volunteer
exactly.
effort. And
Last night we were meeting with the Mink Brook Stewardship Committee and scheduled a fun event, a pulling party for glossy buckthorn seedlings. And boy, you know, if you get a group of friendly people together who are like-minded, then you can spend a couple hours doing that, and you can feel good about it and have fun.
And get a lot done at the same time.
But it also creates not only a constituency that's dedicated to these properties, but then it's a way of transferring that knowledge about how to steward and how to care for a piece of land
Right.
in an ecologically sustainable manner.
Right.
And then those ripples spread.
Well, hopefully the family gets involved. The kids learn a lot as having
Ideally.
had good models. And then it's the neighbor to neighbor, and then it's generation to. There's no way it won't spread, because if they see the passion that I think is in this group and this whole field anyway, you're gonna ripple through everybody.
Well,
So
that brings up another way that we reach out to families and kids, and that is through trips. We call them adventures that we offer 3 seasons of the year.
Yeah.
And so we send out, or we organize trips, not in the summer, because it's just too busy for so many of our volunteers, but fall, winter, and spring.
Great.
Each of them has a different trip adventure calendar. Members receive a postcard in the mail that tells them just what's up, and it's typically, they're often on Saturdays. Sometimes it might even include a lecture on an evening, but usually an outdoor trip, often with professional leaders.
Oh, that's fabulous. I like that.
Knowledgeable wildlife experts, that sort of thing.
And this area has several.
Oh, great
That's
volunteers.
understating it.
Many of them volunteers for us, which is great. So that everybody is welcome to come on our trips. They are free, and it exposes people
Are they
to
for just Hanover
properties.
people?
Oh,
Hanover
no,
residents?
no,
we
we have
have-
pretty good
Because
diversity.
since everybody can go on them, that anybody could go to this, get involved in this
Absolutely.
kind of endeavor.
Yep. We have people from halfway across Vermont who make a point to stay members so that they get our mailings right
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
And they come down for the programs. We have moonlight snowshoe tours. We have, we're going to be doing a vernal pool tour in the spring of some vernal
That's
pools we
fabulous.
discovered at Greensboro Ridge. A couple of weekends ago, we had a marvelous tour with the Hanover Historical Society to the far northeast corner of the town of Hanover in the Tunis Brook neighborhood. You can only get to it by hiking over Moose Mountain or by driving around, by Goose Pond or Goose Pond Road.
Right.
And we explored an 1822 restored schoolhouse out there, and then we went to a small piece of land that we own that has an historic mill site on it in a beautiful forest with a lovely brook. And we had over 40 people with us, and we had a great time.
So I would guess that a huge percentage of the trips you make, you discover something that you didn't expect.
And often the people who come with us on these trips will teach us something about what we're seeing.
See, that's kind of cool because both things are a surprise.
Yeah.
I mean, when you run across the site of something, it just little clues left over, but someone in the group just happens. I think that would be an amazing experience because talk about learning something every day. You have that chance.
And getting outside.
Getting outside is key. I feel like I did when I was a kid when my mother used to say, go out and don't come in unless we have a tornado.
Yeah, there you go.
And that's how I wish today was working because I think too many people miss what's out there. But, I mean, I love the rain we're having, but I absolutely hate it at the same time because I like to be outdoors.
We tend
But
to go
I
out,
heard
whatever.
something about you lately. I think the name is it Karanoki or
Karanoko.
Martha Teka put it on the Facebook the other day and said, ask Adair about this. And I know it isn't relevant, but it is just because it's you here sitting here. But you apparently have a marvelous spot in Maine.
Well, yes, and it's actually what is relevant is that it was a camp in Maine that was owned by my grandfather, who was really the conservationist in our family, who raised us all, through generations to appreciate the natural environment and to want to do something to protect it and leave the woods in a little better condition than when we found it.
Yep. Leave
That's
no tracks.
It's been a pleasure for me to follow in his
Well,
footsteps.
she was
in that
absolutely
way.
passionate. She said, ask her about this. I said, Martha, I'll try to get it in. And now I can drop Martha a note and say,
Okay.
be watching. But now how long have you been doing this? I know you were on the Conservation Commission for
Some
and
years
Planning
ago.
Board for
and Planning
years, so
Board.
that you've done, Hanover as well as anyone.
Well, I like to think I know a lot about Hanover, but I jumped
do.
from community in the town government service
Right.
to private nonprofit work
Right.
when I jumped on to this organization. And we, just so that people know the history, we were called the Hanover Conservation Council,
Council.
which led to, we believed, quite a bit of confusion about public and private and which one is nonprofit. So through a rebranding effort just a year ago, we became the Hanover Conservancy. Same organization, new name, hopefully image that will keep
But
it
that
clear.
often is the case with a name. I had the manager of the Upper Valley Hostel on recently. And we were talking about the name hostel, and my sister had used to run one, and it was always for hikers and skiers and people. of all, and she said, we're in the process of trying to rename ourselves because we don't, it isn't a hostel, as most people think of it. And it's too important to have it be misnomered, and therefore under-touted as a fabulous place for patients to come. So rebranding matters. You got to be clear.
I wanted to mention one more of our properties, Slade Brook Natural Area, out off of River Road, and that grew into a project when I was on the planning board back then, before I was participating here, and it was part of the development program to concentrate the homes and protect the surrounding land. So that happens sometimes, and that's a perfect package in terms of, I think, benefiting the community.
Well, every time you can sort of make sure you not lock up, but you describe and define something as what it really is meant to be for, and like, it helps everybody, because then, I mean, you don't get some of the damage, you don't get some of the hideous treatment of our lovely earth, which no rules will allow. So you got to have some boundaries. So tell me again, give the website again.
And then the mission.
Right over there, and then you do the mission, or vice versa.
HanoverConservancy.org.
And the mission.
And our mission, well, we protect land and water in our community. That is number one. We attempt to bring people outside and share what we have learned about managing natural lands in an ecologically sustainable way. We are very enthusiastic about our public education program outdoors. And we also participate in advocacy for environmentally responsible public policy.
Good. Now, do you go to different schools or anything and talk about this, or do you?
We have had that kind of program in the past. When we were an all-volunteer organization, we had we have a wonderful, active working board. This is not a board that sits on its hands.
Good.
But we've, from time to time, we've had board members who have taken that as a particular interest and responsibility, and we've done quite a bit of work at the Ray School and others in town. But we don't have any particularly formal relationship set up at the moment.
But every time you visit a group like that, you've just spread the word to 500 more people, who, some of whom are going to go home and rave about it to mom and dad, and there you go. There's the ripple.
And we're happy to work with teachers. Sometimes in a season, one of the trips will be specifically student-focused and one classroom-based.
Excellent.
And get them.
As a field trip, and highly touted.
And we're completely open to that. We're happy to talk to.
And
so remember that, all of you educational people out there, they are available and willing to teach your kids and help you teach your kids. So
and would like to be a resource.
You could do that. So you know how to reach, and your website will show up on the TV when the show airs. Your website will be on. And to those of you who don't, I can't say that. You can't say that. It's I did it once and it sounded so odd. To those of you who don't get this channel, excuse me, I know that you all watching have friends that don't get this channel, but once the show is edited and aired, and I always announce on Facebook and any other way when a show will air, it will then end up in our Vimeo library, which is on the web homepage of catv.org, so that you can eventually go through, and they've done it beautifully with alphabetical options, so that you can look up the show Spirit of the Valley and see all of our shows all at once. And often the most recent one will be right on the homepage as you open it up. So it's really fun that way, so that people that don't get it can see it on their computers. And this is the part we like, because we know it's not everywhere, but we do know that it can be that way. So, did I tell you this was a fast half hour?
Wow.
I think I did, but I wasn't lying.
No,
I thank you so much. I think more people that see these signs. Anyway, these signs are posted everywhere. It sounds like there's no one that can't get to one of these, so no excuses. But it's a nice walk. It would obviously, the areas you're covering are beautiful walks, and very easy access. Without a long drive, without a lot of equipment, without much of anything. You're not far from home. If you get tired or it rains, you're right there. And the neighborhoods are all these areas mentioned have neighborhoods nearby too, so that just go out for a walk. Go out for the prettiest walk you'll have. So I can't thank you guys enough. This is really news, what you were doing. And my husband gets some credit. He came home and told me he ran into Nancy and heard this thing and said, call her up, and I did. And
Judy, we thank you for considering us part of the spirit of the valley.
you're part of the spirit of the
That's
valley.
really a nice thought.
This
Thank
is
you.
spirit. That's why I use that word, because it covers everything. This is a very spirited, resourceful valley of people that do wonderfully interesting things.
Oh, it is.
And we're never at a shortage of, if you ask the guy back behind the window, I every now and then have him a little overwhelmed because I get, these people giving me names, and I meet people and say, oh, come on. And all of a sudden he's just flooded, and he's very polite about it, but I know I make him work too hard. But that's it, folks. This is just another reason why these shows go so fast. People that are passionate about something and knowledgeable about something and just
Love to share it.
love to share it. And I think that's what it is. It's sharing it. And you can therefore go on some of these trails and share it with your friends. So let's all do it. Thank you again, Adair and Nancy. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Judy.
Total pleasure. And don't forget, catv8.org, and eventually they'll be up. But if you do get the channel, I post it on Facebook every day, and I tell people to tell their friends that aren't on Facebook mainly when they'll be on, and you'll get several runnings and several showings. And I think people by the end of that session will know a lot about what you guys are up to, and it's all good. So
Very helpful.
thank you so much for watching, and thanks to these two again. We'll look for you next time.